Martin Truex Jr. absolutely obliterates the field on today's Goodyear 400. Welcome back to the episode of MDK Racing Victory Stop. We're going to discuss what took place in the race, and I'm also going to tell you why a majority of NASCAR fans have no idea what they want in terms of racing. But of course, we must go over what took place during the race. So it began with Brad Keselowski and Kevin Harvick starting on the front row. Keselowski led the first 4 laps. Harvick took the lead on lap 5. On that very same lap, coming off of turn number 2, Aric Almirola gets turned by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and absolutely crushes the inside wall. A huge impact. I mean, so hard, you can see it, that the front tires were off the ground. I mean, it was incredible that impact was, but it did bring out the first caution. We restart with Kevin Harvick holding on the race lead from Brad Keselowski, who was starting to drop back due to him reporting that the car was hitting the splitter. Actually, by this point on, very early during the race, Keselowski just started to fall off. He led the first 4 laps, and that was really the only time we ever saw Keselowski show some form of speed. Kyle Busch restarted in second place, drove in hard entering turn 3 to then take the lead from Kevin Harvick. But then on lap 22, as soon as Martin Truex Jr. then takes the lead from Kyle Busch, cuts down on the 18 car, taps the wall just a little bit with the right rear fender, and then spins to bring out the second caution. So then when Truex restarts, you now had Kevin Harvick in second place and Tyler Reddick, who also had a really strong car. We know how good Tyler Reddick is at these low grip tracks like here at Darlington or like Homestead, like Atlanta, tracks that have really low grip and really forces you to manhandle the car. Reddick always seems to excel at that, and Darlington was no different. You then had some fun battles around the middle to near the end of stage number 1, including Truex and other lead lap cars, like with Bubba Wallace, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Kyle Busch, who was trying to stay on the lead lap, as well as Brad Keselowski. They were giving, Truex a run for his money. They weren't blocking him like how you see with Ryan Newman, but there were some a bit of tense moments between Truex and the lap leaders that made for some exciting battles. Then Ross Chastain pulls on a strategy which still I don't understand what the whole point of this strategy was. It was so stupid what him and his team did. So after that caution, when Kyle Busch spun, Chastain and his team, they had him stay out for the remainder of the stage. And when you're at a track like Darlington, where it just eats the tires up so quickly, you cannot afford to do that. Doesn't matter if you might save an extra set of tires. You cannot afford to do that because it is not going to end well. He was the leader for around 10 or so laps, but very quickly, Truex goes by, Hamlin goes by, Harvick, everyone that pit for tires went by him, and sure enough, he not only would he go a lap down, he would no longer be even in the free pass position. So all of that stuff, the strategy that they were trying to pull here, not only did it not work, it completely backfired on them because now you're trapped a lap down and you can't get the lucky dog. It made absolutely no sense, and trying to save a set of tires, which is what I assume what they were trying to do, was not worth it because they really didn't rebound at all after that incident. Anyways, Martin Truex Jr. would win the stage. In second place is Denny Hamlin. Third, Tyler Reddick. Fourth, Kyle Larson. Fifth is Kevin Harvick. Sixth, Joey Logano. Seventh, Ryan Blaney. Eighth, Chase Elliott. Ninth, William Byron. And Alex Bowman rounds out the top 10. So stage 2 begins right away with another crash, almost identical to his teammate. Cole Custer was involved in also another hellacious accident on the inside wall of turn number 2. This time, he was nowhere near the incident, but somehow got involved. So Anthony Alfredo was battling Quinn Houff. Alfredo gets loose off of 2, spins right in front of Cole Custer, who goes hard into the inside wall, so hard that it actually lifts the car off the ground. And when you see the impact, it almost looks identical to Almirola's crash. The front end is completely crunched in. The front tires are stuck off of the ground. It was almost identical how they spun, how they hit the wall, and the damage of the cars was, again, ironically, almost the same. When we got back to restart, I think then 1 or 2 laps later, another crash, this time off of turn number 4 on the front stretch. Kurt Busch gets loose, and then it looks like he gets a tap from the 23 car of Bubba Wallace, which sends Kurt sliding to the inside wall. Not as hard as an impact compared to Cole Custer or Aric Almirola, but the car did catch up in flames and it did end Kurt Busch's day. Now, there was not much that took place in stage 2. There were a lot of good racing, typical racing for what you see at a track that forces drivers to really drive, that eats the tires up, low grip. Combine that with a package with low downforce, you see a lot of good racing, or at least you see a lot of moments where you saw drivers really have to manhandle the cars. Some good side-by-side racing, or at least good racing from battles from cars from the middle of the pack. You saw a lot of cars slipping and sliding, especially up the corners of turn 2 and turn 4, which were really fun to see. You even had a scuffle between Ryan Blaney and Alex Bowman. Both of them made contact with the outside wall in turn number 2, trying to race against each other. As well as near the end of the stage, I think the battle for 4th or 5th place between Hamlin, Larson, Bell, and Logano, that was also a pretty fun battle to see there near the end of stage number 2. But up front, it was Martin Truex Jr. who would go on to win once again. Second is Kyle Busch, third is Byron, fourth Hamlin, fifth Larson, sixth is Bell, seventh Logano, eighth is Reddick, ninth is Blaney, and 10th is Chris Buescher. Nice run for Buescher. And how about Kyle Busch? Remember, he was he was almost a lap down. He was not actually caught one lap down. He was able to stay on the lead lap at the end of stage number 1, but able to rebound incredibly to finish second in stage number 2. Now in the final stage, in stage number 3, we're going to skip right to the end. So right before the final round of pit stops, Martin Truex Jr. had a 4-second lead on Kyle Larson, another driver that runs really well here at Darlington. After the pit stops, however, it was down to just 1.4 seconds. On top of that, Truex was getting held up just a little bit by lap traffic, but Larson just, I don't know what happened or what he did, but he just turned on the jets. It was 1.4. The next lap, 1 second. Then a couple laps after that, with 28 to go, it was down to 0.2 of a second. And it was really cool seeing the two drivers of Larson and Truex really struggling with their cars, because by this point in time, they were in a long green flag run. Tires are going away, wear is going away, and the cars were just slipping and sliding off the corner. There were a lot of times off of turn number 4 where it seemed like Truex just barely tapped the wall trying to save his car. It was so cool to see how hard they were pushing it to pass each other, or at least to stay up there in first place. And it did seem like at first that maybe Larson would be able to pass Martin Truex Jr., but Truex was just able to hold his ground, hold him at bay, and sure enough, seemed as though as the laps are winding down, Larson just used his stuff up. There was one last opportunity between Ryan Newman and Tyler Reddick that were battling, I believe, for 13th or 14th place at the time, holding up Truex. Larson was able to chop down, because by this point in time, Larson had fallen back to about a second. With Reddick and Newman holding Truex up, it was back down to 3, 4, 5 tenths, but as soon as Truex got by those guys, the gap just opened back up, and Truex will go on to win the Goodyear 400 for a second career win at Darlington, and his third win of 2021, and I believe his 30th win of his Cup Series career. He is still currently the only driver in the Cup Series in 2021 to go to victory lane more than once. Just to tell you how dominating Martin Truex Jr. was, he led all but 19 laps, 248 out of 267. Another interesting stat, I believe this was around stage number 2. He was so far out in front that he made a pit stop and still ended up as a leader. He was that far ahead. He was that dominant. It was incredible to see how strong of a car Martin Truex Jr. was. We're going to go quickly through the results because I got some stuff to talk about regarding the reaction from this race. So you see Truex wins, Larson in second, Kyle Busch, like I said, a great rebound to finish third. William Byron in the top 10 for the 10th week in a row. That is the longest streak I believe anyone has ever had for top 10 streaks at Hendrick Motorsports since Jeff Gordon back in 2007. Hamlin in 5th, Harvick 6th. A nice top 10 finish because SHR as a whole has been struggling, but Harvick once again inside the top 10. Elliott in 7th, Blaney 8th, and Roush Fenway teammates Chris Buescher and Ryan Newman 9th and 10th. Rookie Chase Briscoe in 11th, Reddick 12th, Logano 13th, and then you see the rest of the drivers like Bell, Chastain, and Dillon 2 laps down, Bowman, Jones, DiBenedetto 3 laps down. Then you got Stenhouse, Bubba Wallace, Corey LaJoie, Suarez, Keselowski. It's very surprising to see him back in 24th place. Ever since he lost that lead on lap number 5, that team was just horrible, all around horrible. 24th place for him. Ryan Preece, Alfredo, McDowell, and then some other notables. Kurt Busch, Cole Custer, and Eric Almirola were the 3 drivers that did not finish. So the reason why at the beginning of the episode I said NASCAR fans don't know what they want in terms of a race, because I thought the race was good in terms of, it wasn't the most exciting. No, it wasn't the most exciting, but it was still fun to watch. The strategy that was involved in it, seeing the cars or drivers actually having to drive the cars for once instead of just having to blip the throttle every now and then. It was really cool to see them actually having to drive. Then you had this one person who says, y'all call this good racing, and shows a picture of the ticker that shows the time intervals. And it shows, like, for example, like Hamlin was 3 seconds behind, Reddick 5 seconds, Harvick around 2 seconds behind from one car to the next car. In my opinion, that is a horrible way to judge a race, is by time intervals, because that doesn't really tell the full story. And the thing is, with NASCAR fans, a lot of them say, we hate this 550 horsepower package. We want to see the cars or the drivers actually have to race. We want to see them actually have to, with throttle control and mechanical grip and actually having to manhandle the cars. We got that today, and fans are still complaining. What do you want? Do you want what we saw at Kansas? Or do you want what we saw here at Darlington? I thought Darlington, again, was it the most exciting race? No. Was it the most entertaining race? No. But it was a good race. I think it was what NASCAR should be. Not every race should be down to the wire, side-by-side action, 3-wide battling the entire way through. That should not be the case at all. This was a good race in my opinion. Again, it wasn't the best, but it was a good race. Saw a lot of strategy. So what if Truex led all but 19 laps? Yeah, that's not exciting, but that shouldn't judge how you enjoy a race, is by the leader. There were good battles. There were a lot of good battles in the middle of the pack, and the broadcast showcased them. There were some really good battles. We even had a good battle near the end between Larson and Truex, if that, floats your boat. I think what we saw was exactly what we should see in a lot of NASCAR races. Seeing the drivers actually have to drive. There was even a moment when Larson, an incredible moment by Larson, and this was when he was chasing down Marchex Jr., split 3 wide between Newman and Reddick, and this is on a package that is low downforce on worn tires. That was an awesome moment. Do you want to see that happen every single lap? If you do, then just watch last weekend at Kansas, because we saw a ton of that on restarts. But when it comes down to long green flag runs, when the tires are starting to wear out and the drivers and the car is really in the driver's hands to make the most of it, that is where the fun sets in. Not when you see 3-wide or 4-wide racing the entire time on a 1.5 mile track where you see cars only blip the throttle or, maybe let off the gas every now and then. The only type of pack racing we need to see that, or cars going full throttle, is Daytona and Talladega. That is it. When we go to these other racetracks, we want to see throttle control. We want to see drivers use the brake. We want to see mechanical grip. We want to see them slipping and sliding around like what we saw here today. That is what we want, or at least that's what I thought what we want, but apparently a lot of people thought that today's race was trash just because the leader won or led all but 19 laps. Oh, the leader led all but 19 laps. That means this race sucked. No, that's stupid. So what if the leader led the entire time? So what, if there wasn't a lot of lead changes? That should not define what, if a race is good or not. If there were good battles in the middle of the pack, if there are a lot of entertaining battles throughout the race, that's a good race. That should be fine in my book. At least it's fine in my... That's completely fine in my book. Yes, would I like to see, a lot of battles for the lead? Absolutely. A lot of people would love to see that. I'm pretty sure everyone wants to see that. Instead of Truex leading, maybe have Larson lead, then Byron lead, then, have 20 lead changes instead of, I think, 4 or 5 in this race. We would love to see that. But that is not the normal. This is a normal race. What we saw was a normal race, I feel like. This is a race. This is racing, not passing. If you want to see passing, you can go out on the interstate on I-95 on the highway. You'll see a ton of passing there. Or like what Tony Stewart said, we're not passing. This is racing. All right. Not every race has to go down to the wire where we see side-by-side, 3-wide racing, 25 lead changes in a race. No. Would that be great every once in a while? Yes. But we should not have that every single race, because then it's just going to become boring. Sorry, I'm ranting, but I was frustrated when I saw how people were saying, oh, this race sucked, because of battles, like everyone is so spread out apart. Which, to be honest, they weren't really that spread out apart. Yes, they were a lot far behind from the leader. I mean, first and second place in that screenshot I showed you, I think it was 2 or 3 seconds. But you had battles between, I think it was Reddick and Byron, or, Larson, I think, and Hamlin. You saw battles in the middle of the pack. Yeah, they were far away from the leader, but there were still a lot of good battles. But the fact that everyone is so focused on the leader and the fact that no one challenged the leader, that automatically makes it a bad race, which I don't agree with. But yeah, anyways, I'm done ranting. I thought it was a good race. Again, it wasn't the best, but it was a good, solid race. I gave it a 6 or 7. Actually, no, I gave it a 7 out of 10. Congratulations to Martin Truex Jr. He is going to be a threat for the championship. I think this solidified him being a threat for the championship. Kyle Larson, once again, finishing in second. I think this is the 3rd or 4th time this season he's finished in second place. William Byron continuing that top 10 streak. Again, 10 in a row now. Since the 3rd race of the season when he won at Homestead. That 24 team has been on a roll. I might even go a bit far and say that he might be a serious contender to make the championship 4. Who knows? That team has been one of the most consistent so far in 2021 alongside with Denny Hamlin. But these next races should be exciting to watch. We go to Dover, Coda, Nashville. A lot of exciting races coming up on the schedule, and it should be a fun summer to watch. But that's going to conclude this episode of MDK Racing Victory Stop. Tell me what are your guys' thoughts on the race in the comment section down below. But until next time, my name is Jett from MDK, and I'll see y'all next time.